Hello everyone, welcome to Pack Tactics. We're gonna talk about the marshals, but first we gotta talk about the weapon properties. And
they received some changes. Hey guys, again.
Oh yeah, Daniel's here. I forgot Daniel was here.
For sure.
Anyways, let's start with weapon stuff. Heavy weapon property has been completely changed. This is mostly a me problem, not really too much about you guys who pick custom lineage and very human.
There's a handful of races or species where this actually applied. I've had some cool character ideas where it's like a small guy with a big weapon, but in 5e you got disadvantage on tech rolls with heavy weapons if you were small or smaller than that. They changed that here.
Yeah, so, and I remember in our campaign, you guys are handing me like a longbow, right? And longbows have the heavy property. And I don't realize that till like when I actually need it, when we're fighting like something far away. And I'm like, oh crap, I have the wrong bow. This has the heavy property. I have disadvantage. So now I don't need to worry about stuff like that anymore.
I think it's a good change, but on the other hand, I also just feel like the heavy property doesn't really fit into the system very well. Like, look at what it does right now. You need to have 13 strength or dex depending on the weapon you're using. When do you not have that score if you're using these weapons?
That is a good point. Like, it just being there is more hindrance than anything, and it hurts builds. So they might as well just remove it at this point.
There's also the edge case of like playing a warlock with charisma weapons, and you don't have 13 strength. That's like the one situation where you then can't use a heavy weapon where you could have in 5e. There's more situations, but that's one I can think of from the top of my head. I just think it's... Right now, it barely affects any builds in the way they've written it down now. I think it's just unnecessary. Just remove it.
Yeah, I talked about this before in the caster parts. Flex is gone. And I didn't really think Flex needed to be gone. And I disagree with Crawford that it's powerful.
Oh, I did think Flex needed to be gone because it was just awful. But no, Jeremy Crawford went out and said that it was one of the most powerful damage dealers out of the bunch. And okay, if you consider that only a few actually call out damage, then sure. But a lot of them indirectly deal damage, right? It was a super weak feature that did like around 1 DPR or less, if you account for multiple attacks, and it's gone now. I'm happy.
When the weapon properties came out, I'm pretty sure I put Flex at the bottom of like the weakest one.
Yeah.
So
it was just bad.
It is really bad.
It's really sad to see what he said about Flex. Like, personally, I don't really have too high of hopes for this system, but that is really just it plummeted down even further. It's high school math, and it's just bad.
Yeah, and
everyone can see that.
If that's his actual opinion, then I think. I'm sorry to say, but I think solving the Marshall caster disparity is kind of a lost cause at that point.
Moving on, there are some other small changes, like some weapons have different properties now, or the ability to have different properties now.
Yeah, I'll just put it on the screen. We don't really need to talk about it. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that is, I guess, important-ish is the push one. They nerfed it so it only works on larger, smaller creatures. Why not, you know? Why would you have a Hercules moment or whatever where you push a larger creature? Sorry. I really think this is unnecessary. Realism is really not that meaningful, I think, when you talk about superhuman feats.
Yeah, I've always considered D&D as a high fantasy game. So I do think they should be able to do the Hercules things.
But I guess that's the weapon masteries.
Yeah.
I had hoped for a lot of big buffs here. I saw none. Do you think they may change them in the future?
Well, they said they would do stuff with them. Like a while ago, they said, oh, people love them, and we would add on to it because there was a demand for adding on to it. And while they haven't done that yet, so who knows what they're... Maybe they are doing that, but then it's behind closed curtains for now.
Maybe they need more time to cook.
Maybe, but if they're removing Flex, what does that tell you?
If they think that's too powerful, yeah, then I don't know.
This video is sponsored by World Anvil, where you can create worlds with ease. It's got all the tools you need. There's also guides and videos on how to optimally use these tools, and a dedicated community that loves storytelling that can help you out. Getting involved in this is truly optimal, Mr. DM. Play your cards right, and your players will shower you in pizza. Cool, I love pizza! I know you do, Gator. Anyways, you can look at other people's worlds for ideas or see how they set up their maps. I think this one with the galaxy is super cool for like a Star Wars sort of game. Don't get me wrong, I love the Sword Coast interactive map, but this is taking things to another level. It's way more interactive, customizable, and even personal if it's your work. I highly recommend checking out World Anvil. What they're doing over there is magic to me. Use the code PACK at the checkout and you'll get 40% off any yearly subscription.
Yeah. Let's see if they did something better with Fighter. 5e, you gain all your second wins back on a short rest, but you had less of them. And now they give you more of them, but you regain less on a short rest. Fine with me.
Whatever, it's fine.
A big thing to talk about maybe together, before we move on, as we've just talked about weapon masteries anyway, is the changes to how Fighter interacts with weapon masteries. In the previous iteration for Fighter, they got multiple weapon masteries, they got to add multiple properties to one weapon, and they got to swap the properties. They changed that. You can now, at level, 9, you can replace masteries for multiple weapons, I believe, but you cannot add multiple properties to one anymore. I think that's a bad move.
And you also need a long rest to refresh it, if you know what I mean.
To change it, yeah. But how often are you going to change it? So I don't think that's a big deal.
Maybe not, but I don't know. I still think they should, allow that kind of customization on will, Got different fighting moves. Like one is knockdown, one is push.
Oh, you're saying make all properties non-weapon dependent and fighters can just use them whenever.
Yeah.
Or martials in general. I do kind of favor that kind of system. Because right now they're indirectly suggesting to people that they should have multiple weapons to make use of multiple properties. And I really dislike the idea of a fighter having to carry a trident, a dagger, and a longsword or whatever. I don't remember what all the properties do, but at least in the last playtest, every round included swapping of all those weapons or similar. And that's just such a stupid image to me. I don't like the weapon juggling at all.
And also, not all of them are probably going to be magical, You got your +2, a halberd, and then you have to pull out your regular mace, for example. I don't know. It's just awkward.
I'm not a fan of the weapon properties here. I kind of like the idea of being able to add multiple properties together, and that's kind of what you're saying too, right? Because you're saying people should be able to swap whenever, and that would work a lot better. So at that point, what features do you give to Fighter? I don't like this idea.
And like we said, that these are not very powerful either, so it's not the power boost it needs.
Yeah, most of them are like close in power to cantrips or at most first level spells. So that's like their power basically. Action Search. Last playtest they made Action Search only usable for a very small amount of actions. It was basically like haste, if I recall correctly. Right now they changed it to be anything except for the magic action, or I think it's magic action.
Yeah, it's called magic action now. Personally, I'm fine with it. It should reward being a martial more than a caster,
Next change, Tactical Mind. That's a new feature. I quite like it.
Yes, this one's really cool. You can spend your second wind die, add to a skill roll, an ability check. Like we talked about before, you get a second wind die on a short rest, or all of them on a short rest. Not all of it is guaranteed to go into your HP pool. Sometimes you want to use it on skills, like jumping over a chasm, and if you fall, you might lose your character. So, yeah. Of course, you want to use it then.
Ability checks often aren't very important. There are ways around them, or failing them doesn't fill the adventure. If your DM plays it that way, then your campaigns are probably very short. Though, of course, it can be very convenient to succeed on a skill check, or ability check rather. I think this is a neat feature, and it helps fighters out of combat where, they usually just sit around and suck on their thumbs.
You don't think, like, rogues need a boost just because they have this, for example?
I think rogues need a boost either way.
I mean, yeah. True.
Rogues are just a joke. Maybe a bit of a side tangent here, but they have been giving every class skill expertises and skill bonuses and such. Like, even that small niche that rogues had, which wasn't even that useful, you made a video on it. They're giving it away to everyone else. There's barely any reason to play rogue anymore.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Either way, all of this stuff probably does show that rogue also should get more bonuses if they're so willing to give other classes the bonuses.
Yes, tactical shifts.
Another addition to second wind usage: whenever you activate your second wind with bonus action, you can move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. I think this feature is quite neat. It's just a boost to second wind.
Yeah, I think this is completely fine, that there's more uses for second winds. I originally thought second wind was fine with just being part of the hit pool, but this was I think this is pretty clever, actually.
They said that you could do it to get healed, which, you know, healing is bad in combat, so probably don't heal the fighter after they do this. Either case, this is actually quite powerful if you're in melee with creatures that are stronger in melee than ranged, because it says you can move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. So you get to move 15 feet, usually, if you have 30 feet speed, and then another 30 feet. That means you're 45 feet away from the enemies, and I'm not sure what the percentage is, but most enemies have less than 45 feet speed. So that means they'd have to dash to get back into melee with you, or use their ranged weapon. I like the feature. It reduces the scariness of melee. This, of course, won't be very meaningful for people that want to stay in melee.
Well, maybe it can help them get into melee, but...
Potentially. Yeah, it's like half a dash as a bonus action.
Or, like, get behind enemy lines to get the enemy caster.
Yeah, I could actually see second wind being used while you're full health to be able to get your action and action surge into an enemy. That's kind of a funny idea. Next up, Indomitable. I think the only change is that you can use it more often now, which, of course, beneficial. I think the feature is still kind of a joke because it says Indomitable and it doesn't make you indomitable.
I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've said this in a video, but like, I think it's okay to give them just like straight up legendary resistance.
I could also just have a cool lore, you know, like your battles have become legendary. You now gain X legendary resistances per whatever.
Absolutely. I feel like when you're a high level martial, you should be the boss monster instead of the enemy being a boss monster. You're the threats, not them.
They should be scared of the marshals, true. But so far, not many of the features are making that a thing. I think the final change to fighter itself by base is studied attacks. You can roll at advantage if you miss a creature. I think this is pretty weak because it's less than one advantage per round. Its maximum is one advantage roll per round. Pretty late, level 13.
Yeah, I agree. It's very late. It would be nicer if it came at, I would say 7 is fine.
I would like to talk about the weapon masteries one more time before we move on to the subclasses. Besides weapon masteries just not being strong, the first feature that interacts with weapon masteries is at level 9. Isn't that just crazy?
I think that's ridiculous. A lot of people like these weapon masteries. Why are they so late? I mean, sure, you get the one at level 1, but we want to get more, you know?
Kind of weird that they add this whole new system to interact with weapons and then they barely touch it.
Yeah.
So, enough complaining about that now, I guess. Let's move on to fighter subclasses, starting off with Battlemaster.
Battlemaster.
You currently have got three levels in Battlemaster in our Storm King's Thunder game.
I have 3 levels in Battlemaster. And you know what? The only feature I use from Battlemaster is precision attack. That's right. I like hitting things very hard. I've never used the other ones, although...
No, you've used the other ones a few times, because those add to damage, and sometimes we want to finish creatures.
I think I used Trip once.
And the Frightening one, I think, as well.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you have. Either way,
but
let's look at the features they get. First up is the changes to maneuvers. A lot of ones from Tasha's have been included. I don't think anything crazy was in that book, so it's whatever. It's cool that there are more options. The biggest change here, however, is that a lot of these attack maneuvers, so precision attack as an example, they work with any type of attack roll. That means also spells.
Yes.
I don't know why they made this change. On the one hand, you have action surge, which they specifically exclude spells from. And then there's this subclass that has nothing to do with spellcasting whatsoever, and they change the wording so it works with spells.
Yeah, that is kind of bewildering, and no one really asked for this either.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't know anybody who's been, like, even people who were for the old action search, they didn't ask for this. So it's very bizarre.
I don't actually see it coming up either, by the way. I don't see builds where you're like, oh, let's get 3 levels in Battle Master so that I have a higher chance to hit with my spells. But it's just odd. Like, it's a weird change to me.
Yeah, it is weird, but yeah, I'm fine with them keeping it that way, I guess. But it's very weird.
Personally, I do agree that if you can reduce the amount of exceptions to something without it actually affecting the game, that's probably a good idea. There's a lot of features that are too specific, exclude too many things. I'm fine with this saying this way because it's not optimal to go for Battle Master as a spellcaster, but it's just odd to me. It doesn't seem to align with what they were talking about with Action Search. That's basically everything about the maneuvers. Next up is Know Your Enemy. This may be one of my most disliked features, and it's funny because in the Storm King Thunder game that we've talked about a few times, we run with piety, so you get features from for doing stuff for your deity, and one of them that I got is Know Your Enemy because I follow like the Red Knight in that game. But the feature just sucks in 5e. It allows you a comparison between your stats and the enemy stats, and it's dumb. This one, I'm a fan. Do you like it?
I love it. There is a complaint I have though. Like, I think this is like really a hunter feature, you know? But at the same time, I'm fine with this being here. For the hunter, like, it makes more sense. Like, you could do different elemental type to take advantage of this. But you can't do that in hunter. And here's the same deal. No, I'm talking about hunter.
No, okay. I see.
With hunter, you can't take advantage of that. That's the same problem here. You can't take advantage of that besides telling your teammates, right?
I think that's the idea, of course. Like, Battle Masters are like the strategists, and they would tell their team.
Yeah. But
my complaint here is that it's once per long rest.
Yeah, that's way too little.
The thing is, damage immunities, resistance, and vulnerabilities, honestly, it doesn't often come up that meaningfully in an adventuring day.
Yeah.
And this is once again one of those places where, why are you making it so little? At will would be fine to me, I think.
Yeah, at will would just be better.
The final change here that we should probably talk about is that Battle Master no longer gets additional maneuvers. Instead, it says once per turn, when you use a maneuver, you can roll a d8 and use a number rolled instead of expending a superiority die. That just increases the output from Battle Master by quite a bit because you can always use one maneuver without even expending a superiority die. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. That's actually pretty decent. Oh, it's not actually a capstone. I just realized that now.
No, that's off of 15.
And that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good.
You may say that, and that's also what I thought originally. But you also no longer have the -5 from Sharpshooter plus 10 to damage. So precision attack becomes a lot less powerful. And all the maneuvers, were worse than precision attack, and they still are, compared to 5e. So, it's decently powerful, but it all comes back to power attacks being removed, making martials a lot worse, and weapon mastery is not making up for it.
Yeah.
Everything here is related, and it is unfortunate to see.
Let me be clear. I feel like the internet's been really bad at saying this, and you just reminded me. The fighter floor has been raised, but the ceiling of the fighter has been lowered. And that's really important to acknowledge. So when we say martials are bad, that's because they did more damage before.
Exactly. Right now, the output has barely been compensated for the loss of power attack. Let's move on. Brawler. Oh, that's gonna be fun as well. Sorry, guys. There's a lot wrong with martials in this playtest.
Brawler. This brawler looks like it's rushed. Like, very rushed.
Two things I have to say about the subclass. One, we'll definitely see the subclass back in the new Monk. They're definitely going to make Monk be able to use weapon masteries with their unarmed attacks. Second, I don't understand why half the features apply to unarmed strikes and the other half applies to improvised weapons. That's my entire take on this subclass. Besides that, I don't think. Oh no, that's another feature. They talk about one-handed and two-handed improvised weapons, which I don't think exist.
Yeah, that's the problem I had. I just did not understand. I even looked it up and I just don't know where this is.
Yeah, one-handed and two-handed are, I think, just weapon properties, and if you use an improvised weapon, guess what? They don't have those properties. Maybe the idea is your DM is like, oh, this is the closest to a club, so it has a two-handed property, but I'm not sure if properties apply as such. I do know that sometimes with improvised weapons, you have to relate it to what is closest. I'll check what it is in 5e. In many cases, an improvised weapon is similar to an actual weapon and can be treated as such. Yeah, but that's not always the case. It's odd to me. I think this subclass is very messy. It looks incredibly rushed. It's not even that strong.
It's very memey too, and
you use your entire subclass to catch up to using a sword, while all the other subclasses use a sword or whatever weapon and gain benefits to that. So you're basically a base fighter using the Brawler subclass, but you've lost out on any other subclass. Consider this. They make Brawler good in the next playtest. Would you even want to see that Brawler? Or do you think this should be a niche that sticks with Monk?
I want to see it in Monk.
Yeah, I feel it's unnecessary to make a fighter that's a Monk. You know, Monk is already having a hard time at being Monk.
But I do think they got the inspiration either from the movie, the fighter was always using improvised weapons, or the game that just came out.
You mean the barbarian?
Was she a barbarian? I thought she was a fighter.
She was definitely a barbarian.
Oh, I don't even know what classes they were. I did not. I thought the bard was a rogue.
I think there was a bard that didn't cast spells, a barbarian that used improvised weapons, a sorcerer / wizard guy. I don't know which of the two. I don't remember any of the other characters if there were. Oh, there was a paladin.
He was he was there for 10 minutes.
He was cool.
He was cool.
The druid, of course. The druid was one of the most fun characters.
Yeah, the owlbear. We were just playing with Baldur's Gate 3, and you were jumping around with the owlbear. It was super fun.
She was just like me, for real.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think if they want to do improvised weapons and unarmed attacks outside of Monk, they should put it on Barbarian. I think it fits better there, because they are the crazy, chaotic guys, right?
Yeah.
And if not, keep it to Monk.
Let's talk about Champion.
Wow, great changes.
Oh, it is awful.
There's two changes. One, they have Remarkable Athlete at level 3, advanced on initiative and athletics checks, and you can make bigger jumps. And the other change is that you now have once per round heroic advantage, which not terrible. It's better than the feature at level 13 that we were talking about before. It guarantees you have advantage on all of your rounds at least once. That's not bad, but this is once again subclass where the issue is that they aren't doing the math. A lot of people overrate reducing the crit increasing the crit range compared to how powerful it actually is, and then they say, okay, by itself it's not powerful, so combine it with advantage through Barbarian, and even then it's not that powerful. It's just pretty weak compared to alternatives.
Hold Person isn't a strong spell. I considered it okay. I don't know what your opinion is, but
no, it's pretty bad.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty bad against everything else that's not humanoid. But anyways, that is a better critter than your build, a crit build I'm talking about. So yeah, it is really bad. We should just...
Honestly, I really understand their want of a simple fighter for new people. But the thing is, guys, listen carefully. Every fighter is a simple fighter in 5e.
Yeah, that's very true. And, people who are actually, new and, really get invested, they want a little bit of complexity. That's where Battlemaster is perfect. I think Battlemaster is perfect for beginners.
Just do recommended picks and it's solved, Battlemaster becomes easy for new players because, the game already tells you pick this, this, and this. Yeah. Alternatively, make your own choices.
That's a really good idea, and that solves the problem. Because when you pick this champion, you've already fallen for a trap.
Yeah.
And you're just so dependent on the DM handing you things from there. Because all your increases are barely increases. And all you're doing is...
I'm not impressed with the subclass and never have been.
And all you're doing is saying, I take the attack action or second wind. You're just a base fighter. Anyways, moving on.
Maybe the opposite of basic fighter. Eldritch Knight. It's definitely one of the more interesting fighters. And maybe I was a bit too harsh with my words just now that every fighter is easy. Eldritch Knight may be a bit difficult for new people, as well as Rune Knight.
It's even I've even experienced this difficult for veterans too, because they've gotten the picking spell schools wrong, and now they fixed that. So
yeah, I really like the removal of this restriction. The third time I talk about this now, sometimes restrictions are just entirely unnecessary, and they've mostly removed them here. But again, there's an unnecessary restriction, because the first time you get to level 3, you do have the abjuration and evocation restriction, but for some reason not at any other level. So remove that. They did the same thing with Arcane Trickster, but just let people pick whatever they want.
Yeah, and from my experience, even in the old 5e version, the people who they technically cheat, even DMs are just like fine with you picking whatever from what I've experienced.
It was never a very important restriction to the subclass.
No.
One more reason I think that they should remove the restriction is because those spells that you pick up at level 3, you can just swap them out for spells without the restriction on future levels. So it just delays the removal of restrictions, and it's just odd to me that it's still there.
Yeah.
I do like some of the other changes as well, though, to the subclass. Like War Magic, it's basically Blade Singer, right? Very similar to Blade Singer.
Yes. Blade Singer had like an advantage over Eldritch Knight. Well, not only because they were full casters, but because it was just easier for them to interact with cantrips combined with like an attack. This is way better. I'm
They made a really good point in the video actually, where in 5e you got to make an attack as a bonus action if you did a spell as your action. The problem there was that while your attacks on your attack action grew, your bonus action attack didn't, of course. I think this really helps to fix that problem. Good change.
And we've also seen some enemies in Baldur's Gate, the Githyankies, kind of have like a feature like that.
I am reminded of something else though here. We're back with an issue of what is general and what is specific. Before we were talking about action search, where you weren't allowed to use the magic action during your action search. Are you allowed to do this in Eldritch Knight with War Magic?
Oh, that's interesting.
I hope yes.
Yeah, they should.
I think no. I'm not sure.
They should allow that. That's a very good point. That can just be like an additional feature at like level 3, 7. I don't know why I said 3.
Say you can use this as part of your action search too.
This is why I have Daniel on my channel. He's very smart. Improved
Thanks.
War Magic now allows you to replace 2 of your attacks with casting a level 1 or level 2 spell, allowing the Eldritch Knight to further weave magic into their attacks.
Wait, what? Is that what it says in the summary?
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't have the level restriction in the feature.
What? It doesn't?
No.
When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace 2 of your attacks with a casting of one of your wizard spells that has a casting time of an action.
Personally, I've not read the summary, and I thought this feature was fine if resources aren't too much of a concern in your game, but okay, so I wonder which one is supposed to be how it works.
I think the summary is what they intend.
As a capstone, right? I think any level would be fine.
Yeah.
It would allow you to Nova hard, but you're a level 18 fighter, right? Like, you're not casting 9th level spells, you're not casting 5th level spells, like your maximum is 4th level, and you can only do 1 of those per day. So, actually not even at level 18, you can do 0 at level 18, but level later you can do 1 of them per day.
I still think this capstone is a little too weak.
If it's level 1 or 2, yeah, it's way too weak. Final thing we should probably talk about with Fighter, this has been talked about for so long, and I've seen so many people say this thing, and I'm wondering about your opinion. Battle Master as base fighter. What do you think? Every subclass gets Battle Master.
I would absolutely be for that.
Me too. I think their reason not to is, again, it makes fighter too complicated for new players. But I just think give spell in quotation mark suggestions. Just write down what a player could pick up and make that the default choice. Allow them to deviate if they want to. And if a fighter never uses precision attack, whatever, they're equally as strong as the fighter they want to release right now. So who cares? There will be more deviation between players, sure, but then a player can just help a new player and say like, oh yeah, you can use your maneuvers.
By the way, and this is like something I've experienced, by the way, and this is kind of what the devs are talking about. Many, many years ago, we were playing 5e, and we were level, like 15? And a brand new player joined our table. And of course, they don't know the rules or anything like that. And the DM forced them to be a champion fighter, right? Because, they don't know anything. You know what happened to that player? That player...
They quit because it was too boring?
That player loved Dungeons and Dragons. They loved role-playing. They loved everything about it. But they quit the game permanently and never touched the game ever again. Do you know why?
They were bored out of their minds in combat?
Yes, their champion fighter was so weak and it didn't fulfill their fantasy of being a strong monster hunter. That's what they were kept role-playing about. They're like, I'm a strong monster hunter that killed all these monsters in my backstory. New players being hyped up for role-playing like that is super fun and inspiring. You want to play with those kind of people. But that their fantasy completely failed because the champion sucks and it's so boring. Why do we have the champion? It needs to be gone. Or just we need to have battle maneuvers just default into the fighter so they don't get bored or get overshadowed by absolutely everything. And I think
that is just an example of underestimating players, leading to bad consequences. They really, really want a champion for new players, but that doesn't always solve it.
Yeah, and they're new to the game and they trust the game developers to, make things good. So they're like, oh, I picked the whip as my main weapon. And of course the DM, same thing with the DM. The DM's not a game designer. The DM's not an optimizer. They just assume that the game is already balanced. So of course they'll hand them a magical whip that does what? +3, if I remember right? And assume that solves it. Nope. They were weak. They barely did anything. They got downed immediately because every single one of us are spellcasters doing all kinds of crazy stuff. He didn't know what's going on. It is so frustrating. It annoys me why champion exists.
Final thoughts. This fighter, does it fix martials?
No, nothing's solved here. People are freaking out that warlock is stronger than fighter. Well, you got what I wonder why, because they don't want to boost this fighter. They don't want to boost any of the martials. It's going to stay like this. Like I said, the ceiling is lowered, but the floor is raised. But the ceiling also needs to be raised. This doesn't solve anything.
I think a person starting off with fighter should be strong, and I think a person that gets the most out of fighter should be stronger. Right now, it's just too bad, unfortunately. That's my final thoughts.
Don't say in the comments that I'm too mad or angry, It's just...
He just really cares about the game, guys.
Yeah, I like fighter. I want to play fighter. Fighter's fun. Being a little kobold in full plate armor, I'm here to kick ass and chew good berries, but I'm all out of good berries, That's fun. But I can't do that concept because fighters are weak. End of video.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.